Thanks for joining today. We're going to be looking at Retainage Receivables. The screen that you're looking at is Business Central, and on it we have a version of Retainage installed from the app source called Retainage Receivables. In addition, there is another one called Retainage Payables. Essentially the same thing, just on the payable side of the transaction. But today we're going to focus on the receivables. Essentially, retainage is also known as retention. It's also known as holdbacks. And the concept is that you create either an order or an invoice, and then you process the retainage calculation, and it will tell you how much it's going to create as a retainage, a value to be retained. It posts the invoice less the amount which is to be paid at a later date. And then there is a release function where we say, okay, now we're ready to pay the rest of the holdback or the retained amount. And I'm going to be demonstrating that to you today. Let's start with a sales invoice. So on this sales invoice, I'm going to create a brand new one, and I'm going to create the transaction against a customer who I know already has some setup in here. The setup is very, very simple. You basically have to put a retainage percentage and a payables time frame. So you don't have to release the retainage retention amount within this time frame, and you don't have to use this percentage, but we're going to come on to that in a minute. I'm going to create 3 lines on this document because I want to demonstrate the way that Retainage Receivables summarizes values. So I'm going to sell 10 bicycles, and I am going to sell some touring bicycles. I'll sell 10 of them too, and I'm also going to sell some front wheels. Now, for some reason, the taxable structure of my fictitious company says that bicycles are taxed, so I'm just going to classify them as taxable, and that front wheels are non-taxable. This system works in the W1 version of Business Central, so all of the European tax VAT rules will apply. It also works in the US, it works in Canada. So wherever there is a standardized Business Central tax or VAT system, then we will work in the same manner. You'll notice on here that I have some line discount percentages. It's just to prove a point that the value of retention that is calculated, the retainage value that is calculated, is based upon the net amount. So it's the amount after we've taken our discounts. And you'll see that I've got 2 lines which are taxable, and I've got 1 line which is not taxable. So when I go and calculate the retainage, it will give me 2 lines, 1 for each tax break. I'm going to go into here and just demonstrate the fact that even though the customer should have had an 8% retainage, for this particular invoice and just this one invoice, I'm going to say it's going to take 10%. The next part is where we create the retainage. We just click on this create retainage lines, and very simply what it does is it looks into our setup. The setup's very simple. We just have a little bit in the customer posting setup, a little bit in the sales and receivables setup, as explained in the user manual. Anyone who's familiar with Business Central will easily understand these setups if you just open up those tables. But you can see here that what it's going to be doing is it's going to be taking a reduction of a retainage value here based upon the tax splits. And you can see those subtotals are reflected here. That's it. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to post this transaction and see what it gives me. So it's creating invoice number 1037, and let's go and have a look at the customer in a second. So the biggest question that people typically have at the beginning of this is, where is my reporting? And we're going to be looking in a few places for the reporting that is offered. The first one is going to be against the customer ledger entries. Then we're going to look at the customer retainage entries, and then we're going to run some separate reports on the system. I'm not going to open up the posted invoice. I'm just going to click on no there. Let's go back a page, and I'm going to go to customers. I'm going to go and find John Haddock, the customer, and just do a quick search. There it is. And firstly, I'm going to open up the customer and have a look at this button right here, customer retainage entries. So you can see in the customer retainage entries, I'm just going to flip the posting dates, and we can see that a transaction was posted for an amount of 84,000. It has a retainage amount which has been kept back. And that's exactly what we are expecting. It tells us the amount before tax, it tells us the amount after tax. If I want to see the detail entries behind this, I have a detailed page up here. This is one of the ways that we can look at things. I'm just going to expand this screen and we can see, oh, okay, some of it was against the non-taxable group and some of it was against the taxable group. So everything as we were explaining before. The second way that I'm going to have a look at the details of what have happened here is I'm just going to click into the customer ledger entries. So as I open that up, we will see that our invoice 1037 is right here, the standard expected amounts that you can see on the base Business Central. But if I scroll all the way to the right hand side, you will see that we actually also report the retention amounts, the retainage amounts. So I can see exactly where they are right on the screen here and now. We're going to come back to the customer ledger entries in a bit, and we're going to see an additional invoice created when we release the retainage amount. The next thing that I may want to do is have a report. We have a report which is remarkably similar to the aged accounts payable. So it is, sorry, receivable, my apologies. It is going to be aged retainage receivables. And in this one, as you would anticipate, I will be able to run this report, have a look at John Haddock as a customer and see that there are some retainage values which will need to be released at some point. So here we go. I see that John Haddock has this transaction. I see that I have a retainage amount. This was the amount on the invoice that I just posted, plus some other ones. But I can see that there's this amount that needs to be released at some point. The due date is based upon the retainage payables date that we had. Let's come out of there. The next part of the transaction I want to have a look at is, and this comes up from time to time in questions, is how do I see the amount which I may want to accrue for retainage. So I'm just going to open up another list which is retainage. I'm going to look at all detailed customer retainage entries. As I open this up, you can see a series of things. You can see every retainage entry that has been posted in here in detail level at the tax group level. And if I want to, for instance, be able to create an accrual journal, what I can go into is I can look at the remaining amount. So if I just do a filter on anything not equal to 0, then I would be able to quickly and easily get a value. Let's just do this, and then I would do equal to 0. So these are the outstanding retainage amounts which I may wish to accrue. And so now what I'd like to do is I'd like to release that retainage. And this is the final standard reporting mechanism of looking at retainage. So let's go into here. I'm going to type in release sales retainage. You see that I had a release purchase retainage everywhere. I have both installed on this database. They basically work the same way. And I have this invoice here, which I'd like to release. It has an 8,500 amount, which is to be released. And so that's great. I could select multiple invoices if I wish. When I click on selected invoices, it would tell me, do you want to group these by customer? If I was to do that, what it would do is it would take these two invoices and put them onto one invoice as a released retainage. In this situation, interestingly enough, we actually processed this invoice up here against a project. And I would not want to release both of these under the same, because I would like to be able to clearly see which retainage invoices were against a project. You don't have to do project-based invoicing, of course not. But if you did, then that's how that would work. Anyway, as a general rule, most commonly people will just say, let's release one retainage entry against each one, and I'm going to have it based upon the due date, and there we go. And I click OK, and off it goes. So standard Business Central processes, standard Business Central messaging. And let's go and have a look at the results of what happened there. I click back into my customer. I'm going to go back into John Haddock. and have a look at the retainage values that posted. So if I look into the customer retainage entries, you will see that I now have some outstanding amounts, but the original values that I had have now been closed. If I go into the customer ledger entries and I look at that transaction, you will see, so let me just flip these dates so that we're looking at the most recent transactions. You will see that this is the retainage amount that I posted. That was the amount that I released. This was so there were two of them, if you remember. There were actually two retainage invoices that I released. This was the origin of the original. And if I scroll all the way to the right-hand side, we're looking at the top line and the third line. You will see that this was the retainage credit. This is the retainage debit, and they clearly offset each other, and they have been applied against each other. So that was the calculation of the retainage. I will now be able to go and process some payment to this customer in one way or another. The final comment I'll make is that retainage has an application mechanism. So when I released that retainage amount, it went and closed off the original retainage so that I don't see it any longer, and that's good. That's what I want it to do. If I'd made a mistake, I can actually come into any of these lines, and I can unapply the transaction. That reopens it up for me to be able to release it again. So standard Business Central rule, standard Business Central process as you would anticipate. Thanks for watching.